He literally got an entire herd of cattle at one point from one of these tycoons.
You got to start asking questions.
It's going to raise a couple of questions.
You show up at the cabinet meeting and there's 400 cattle there. Where'd you get these? Like, don't worry about it.
Why do you smell like cow shit?
It's these layers. I have to wear all these layers. What am I going to do? I'm wearing these layers.
Welcome to SNAFU, a show about history's greatest screw-ups. I'm your host, Ed Helms, and this week, I am talking to an Emmy-winning comedian, writer, producer, and contributor, and co-host of The Daily Show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the amazing, insightful, and dare I say, delightful Jordan Klepper. Welcome, Jordan.
Oh, thank you. And dare you say it. I'm glad you said it.
I dared.
You did.
I dared.
You took the swing. Everybody wondered. They were all wondering: is he gonna cross the Rubicon and say delightful? He did it right off the bat.
Don't make me a liar.
I know this does. I was gonna say
it's a high bar.
I was gonna take you down today, Ed. I have just a stack of information about you and about your past that I was gonna use against you. Wield it with certainty and aggression. But now that you've labeled me as delightful, I'm gonna set it aside and I'm gonna be kind.
Delight me, Jordan. All right. Now, before we get into today's SNAFU, I'm just curious a little bit about your background. We've known each other a while. We obviously share The Daily Show as I was on the show back in the early 2000s, a long time ago. I'm curious sort of what your path to The Daily Show was.
You know, The Daily Show, I was a fan of The Daily Show. I remember in college watching John. That was like my first into giving a shit about politics and the world around me. Up until that point, I was sort of just a kid in Kalamazoo, Michigan, who only cared about what was happening within a 2-mile radius, which in Kalamazoo, Michigan was not a lot. It was mostly...
Sure.
It was mostly Little League and people talking about Derek Jeter.
Can I say, anybody from Kalamazoo, Michigan, you have to say their full name and from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and you immediately sound like a Depression-era business mogul. Jordan Klepper from Kalamazoo, Michigan. It just is, it's got such a great zinger vibe to it.
It sounds like a Dr. Seuss town. In fact, the buttons in Kalamazoo, Michigan say, yes, there really is a Kalamazoo. You approach Kalamazoo with the disbelief that it actually exists, and the people there will sell you a button to try to prove we are a real thing. We are a small town in Southwest Michigan. Embrace the weirdness of it all.
So you're in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and you're just a comedy fan?
I'm a comedy, yeah. I like... Basically, I'm a Whose Line Is It Anyway improv guy in high school, but I'm a nerd who gets a math scholarship to go to the tiny liberal arts college, Kalamazoo College, as a math major with eyes towards finding something that's inspiring to me. And I find comedy. I find improv. I finally got on stage in my college life, did some improv jokes, and people thought I was funny. And that drug sent me to Chicago and on a path to kind of find and forge this comedy career, which for the longest time, which was like 9 years in Chicago, learning improv, touring with the Second City, takes me to New York, where I start doing stuff with the Upright Citizens Brigade and a lot of comedy. And, you know, like the New York life was writing gigs for MTV shows. It was creating my own little videos and trying to get whatever I could out there, finding a little bit of success, but like, it's like 14 years, 10 in Chicago, and then I'm in New York for 4 years, and The Daily Show comes a-knocking when John Oliver steps aside.
Now, did you always have an inkling towards sort of commentary or satire or political engagement of any kind, or was that really a product of joining The Daily Show?
For me, it was always exciting to do shows that were commenting on something that was happening.
Sure.
You jump into The Daily Show, and that just gets bumped up tenfold.
Right.
And my reading level, which I thought in Chicago and in New York was a pretty good, I was like, I'm pretty well informed. I like walk into those offices at The Daily Show, and Crimea was invaded the first day I walked in, and John wanted to do a piece on Crimea, and I'm like, I don't know where Crimea is. I don't know. I thought I skim a couple New York Times articles every day, and now I'm like, oh shit, I'm so behind. Yeah. Somebody get me a map and a tutor. I can't do this job.
You know what I will say? That's something I miss from my years on The Daily Show. I could, like a couple of years into The Daily Show, I could step into any like topical conversation about politics or sort of current events and just be on fire. Like I had everything at random access because you're just steeped in it day after day. You're studying it. You're engaged in policy discussions, like whatever's going on. Everyone's names in Congress. You've gone to the conventions. It's just like it's really fun. It feels like you're kind of near the sort of like burning hot sun of American sort of political current events. Well, it's a very, very cool job. You are obviously crushing it and have been for a very long time. Keep up the great work. Let's get into today's SNAFU, shall we?
Ooh, I love it.
All right. Well, given your day job involves a gosh darn lot of keeping up with political dramas, I thought it would be perfect to journey into a snafu today involving one of the wildest early political scandals our country has ever seen. In fact, before Watergate, it might have been the biggest, most sensational scandal America had even been through, filled with all kinds of presidential corruption and bribery, which will surely remind you of absolutely nothing going on right now.
Yeah, do you want me to connect this to anything? Because it feels like sci-fi right now, what you're pitching me, Ed.
Right. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's jump in.
All right, great. We begin our journey in 1920 alongside a man who several contemporaneous publications described as, quote, milquetoast. This description, of course, refers to a man of weak character who is indecisive and or easily influenced, all of which will come into play very shortly. Milquetoast is kind of a rude nickname. Did you have any nicknames, Jordan Klepper?
Milquetoast would have been a fine one for me. I would have accepted milquetoast. I think I've been as pale as what I can imagine the delicacy of milquetoast is. I was Geordie Bean to begin with.
Geordie Bean.
Geordie Bean because I was thin as a string bean.
Okay.
I have this weird long head, so that became the case. And then when I got into an improv group, I gave myself a nickname, Truck, which was absurd to the people there, and I was called out for the absurdity of giving yourself a nickname.
You can't give yourself a nickname. That's illegal.
That was the argument, and yet that becomes in and of itself a bit about giving yourself a nickname. And now, fast forward 15 years later, I'm Truck to a small group of people in Chicago, and I proudly did it myself.
That's a very cool nickname. That's the problem with nicknames you pick yourself, is like they're too cool.
They're too cool.
Hey, Truck. Man, here comes old Truck. What's he going to do? He's got some good improv up his sleeves.
Oh, that guy's got great improv. And Truck, of course, was somebody who at that time drove his parents' Dodge Intrepid. So I've got nowhere near a truck.
Sure. But you hauled good improv skills.
Ain't that the truth? 60 wheels, baby.
Yeah. Well, underneath the feeble exterior of this particular person was a sexual miscreant with a penchant for scandal. In fact, he's on record having told the press, quote, "It's a good thing I'm not a woman. I would always be pregnant. I can't say no."
Well, this guy, that's a fun guy to hang out with. I gotta tell you.
I guess so. Yeah, he's just sort of like a yes man. Like, all right, I'm in. Whatever you got.
You know what? Honestly, in the 1920s, for a phrase that starts, "It's a good thing I'm not a woman," ... that's probably the nicest answer you're going to find. Like,
I guess
like,
so.
that's a modern man right there. Oh, how lovely. He didn't bring in any other minorities to make fun of or hound. Perhaps that comes later in the story. Right now, that's a PG answer for 1920.
All right. Any guess who we're talking about?
Oh God, No, I'm at a loss.
It's the 29th president of the United States, Warren G. Harding.
It's Harding.
That's it's Harding. We're talking about Harding.
It's classic.
Yeah. His wife's biographer pegged his number of mistresses at 7, including the wife of one of his best friends. In fact, the steamy affair was so problematic, none other than the Republican National Committee paid the woman a $2,000 monthly stipend on top of a $25,000 trip to Japan and China just so she'd be far out of the spotlight while our Mr. Milquetoast campaigned for the American presidency.
We were doing that back then. We were sending women who were having affairs to Japan. I mean, that's a long trip.
Yeah.
That's a very long trip.
Also, like, kind of a nice little silver lining to an affair.
Honestly,
You just get a trip to China.
You know what? It was hard enough and so expensive to see any other culture at that day and age. Probably your most effective bet was to sleep with the president and see if the government would pay for it.
Yeah, there you go. $25,000 trip to China and Japan. That was the cheapest rate you could get at the time. A lot of powerful men have affairs.
Here we go. Ed, I told you we can't talk about this. Ed, we can't talk about this. Okay, don't put this on me. You said, we're just going to talk history. We're going to talk history. We can't go into all of my infidelities, Ed. Please.
It's dangling right in front of us.
I know.
You are known for having thousands of affairs. No, but honestly, it's well into the summer of 1923, and Harding is nearing the end of his first term. All those swirling allegations of misconduct are starting to threaten his reelection. So he and the First Lady, Florence Harding, isn't that like a fairy tale name? I love that.
That's
Florence
Flo.
Harding.
She had to be a Flo, right? You take Flo.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. At that time, of course, she's a Flo.
You go with Flo. You go with the Flo.
Yeah. So Warren and Flo set off on a 2-month adventure to show some serious leadership and earn back voters' trust face to face. There's even a semi-wholesome photo of Harding at the helm of a locomotive in Alaska here. Do we have that photo handy? Can we take a look?
Oh, is that?
I guess he's in there. He's like hanging. He's hanging out the window there.
I mean, they might not have had Zoom technology, but the photographer could have walked up a little closer, correct?
Yeah.
I assume this wasn't a moving locomotive.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Although I tell you, Ed, you zoom in on this right now, and I look, and I'm like, oh yeah, that guy fucks, right?
Right.
I mean, you see that? You look at that.
Look at the glove. Look at that creepy glove that he's wearing. Yeah, I don't know. He's got a lot going on there. Well, so he called this giant PR stunt the Voyage of Understanding, and it surprisingly held some historical significance. It was the first ever instance of a sitting president visiting the remote regions of Alaska as well as Canada. How are we doing with Canada right now? Do you think relations are better or worse than they were back in 1923?
Oh God! I hate to say it. I think we're on a downward spiral with Canada. I
don't know why. It's so random.
I don't know what it is.
It's so random. What it is. Like, why the hate, Canada? Why are you coming at us with so much hate?
Yes. So what? We talk about making you the 51st state or throwing tariffs on you.
It's because we love you.
Yes. We're the fun older brother who's ribbing you right now. Enjoy it. You're part of the conversation. Welcome.
So throughout this tour, it wasn't just the scandalous affairs that were weighing on old Warren G. Harding. There was also something else going on, something way worse. During the boat ride in Alaska, Harding anxiously asked his Commerce Secretary, Herbert Hoover, yes, that Hoover, for advice. He said, and I quote, "If you knew of a great scandal in your administration, would you, for the good of the country and the party, expose it publicly, or would you bury it?" Jordan, what's the right answer here?
You know what? I think we all know you bury that thing so deep.
Deep.
As deep as you possibly.
You try to find a cave and fill it with concrete.
You fill it with concrete, and then you blame whatever remnants on whoever you want to go down, whoever you're running against next.
Yeah, that's the right advice, obviously.
Yes, that's the American advice.
So, while Hoover emphatically said, you gotta tell the American people they deserve to know, but to your point, Harding ignored this sage wisdom and tried to keep this mysterious scandal under wraps. It wouldn't stay hidden for very long, as massive political scandals tend to do. It started to emerge. There was a dark cloud forming over Harding's presidency, and this cloud was very much in the shape of a teapot.
Ooh.
Yes, that's right. Jordan Klepper, do you know much about the Teapot Dome scandal?
The Teapot Dome scandal. I'd like to say that rings a bell, but I don't think I know a thing about it.
It's like eighth grade history. It just has like I can picture sort of like political cartoons of the day with like a teapot, of which there were many, but it feels evocative. I remember before digging into this, I was like, yeah, what exactly is that? Well, it is one of the biggest scandals in American political history. So let's rewind a bit. So he's on this tour in 1923 to sort of bolster his reelection. But now let's go back to 1921. what exactly was Teapot Dome? Well, first off, Teapot Dome is a real place. It's a landmark rock formation in Wyoming that sort of resembles a teapot. The specific location was one of 3 major oil reserves designated by the U.S. government in the early 1900s as emergency oil supplies for the Navy. Now, I think we have a photo of this teapot formation. And can we take a look?
Oh, wow.
Wait, is this?
That's Teapot Dome?
I think this is a modern photo. This is Teapot. This is, there are old photos of Teapot Dome where the spout is still intact. The spout was knocked off by a tornado in 1962, but this, and I think this is after that.
If you got without a spout, I mean we're talking crackles. I'm seeing castle.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some phallic representation there.
I mean, but you have to admit, it does also look short and stout.
And you know what? I don't have to admit that. You know what? Frankly, it looks tall to me. Everything around it makes it look tall, not short.
Here is its handle. Here is its spout.
But there is no handle.
I know. You're right. It's not.
Well, now I'm supposed to trust you?
Yeah.
You've already instilled that there's more information that's being hidden away, and now I have to trust you about this so-called spout and handle on this rock formation?
In 1921, the newly elected Harding made an interesting move. He shifted control of these oil reserves from the Navy to the Department of the Interior. Now, why in the hell would he want to do that? Mind you, this was a time when there was a lot of debate on whether to conserve the country's natural resources or to allow private industry to take hold of these resources and milk America dry for the benefit of, yes, you guessed it, private industry. Now, enter a character named Albert B. Fall, Harding's new Secretary of the Interior. And
the Fall guy? Is this guy? Does he become the Fall guy? Is this one of those American stories
this
where
is a
it's
great,
like My Name is Mud kind of situation?
Kind of. This is a point of contention. So Fall actually does become the Fall guy of this story, and a lot of people think that is the origin of the term Fall guy. That is disputed. It is apparently not the origin, but it's awfully convenient. He's Harding's new Secretary of the Interior and a former senator from New Mexico. Fall was also a rancher, lawyer, and poker addict. Wasn't everybody in the 20s who downed plenty of whiskey? Didn't everybody in the 20s in the midst of Prohibition?
He was a man in the 20s.
Yeah, exactly. He was just a dude in the 20s. Now we've got a photo of him. Ooh,
I like this.
He's very scandalous. Doesn't it look like he's holding something creepy, whether it's his genitals or he looks like he's hiding something.
The handlebar mustache definitely alludes to a man who is hiding something. Although the quality of that coat, it's amazing the quality of the clothing of that time.
I agree.
Right? Look how thick that coat is.
But the crazy thing is, everybody wore a suit all the time in the 20s. Mm-hmm. You would see even a dirt poor farmer, out working in the fields, they're wearing a suit for some reason. Or beggars on the street of New York City, they're wearing suits. Everybody
Beautiful
had suits.
And the sweat, God, the smell of the 20s. It feels like that's something you can't encapsulate. But I can only imagine if everybody's wearing three-piece suits.
Wool. Three-piece suits
that they're not washing. The dry cleaning industry had not come into full fruition.
No, they didn't have those chemicals.
No, so they're sweating away. And the smells of this man, of this Fall guy.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Now, Harding had campaigned on a slogan of return to normalcy. Fall was not on board with normalcy. It turns out he really coveted power and wealth, and to get it, he needed access to those reserves. Almost immediately, he secretly commenced his money-grubbing intentions. He leased the naval oil reserves at Teapot Dome and also a place called Elk Hills and Buena Vista, California, to 2 private oil tycoons, Harry F. Sinclair of Mammoth Oil and Edward L. Doheny of Pan American Petroleum. Now, you may know the name Doheny from Doheny Drive here in Los Angeles. It is the same Doheny. And it's just a couple of blocks away from me right now, which is just a meaningless factoid.
Yeah, does anybody know that? As I'm in New York, would I have known that? Would people who live on Doheny Drive know that?
They probably don't know for whom Doheny Drive is named, but now they do.
And you really are providing a service, Ed. You really are.
They're thrilled. This is really the point of this podcast, is just to give people useless information.
Can you tell me why 3rd Avenue is called 3rd Avenue? Is there a story behind that here in Brooklyn?
That one's tricky.
Yeah.
There was a Arnold J. Third was a local bridge building tycoon. No,
it was a poker aficionado, if I recall.
Of course. So these deals that our dear friend Albert B. Fall made with Sinclair and Doheny, these deals were made without competitive bidding. And Fall justified this by saying it was, quote, for the public good and national security. But then all of a sudden, a weird thing started to happen, which is that his bank account started looking very, shall we say, well-oiled.
Ooh, yeah. We should say that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you. At the time, Harding doesn't know his Secretary of the Interior is being like shady as hell. Do you believe that? Do you think he was totally oblivious, or do you think he was just turning a blind eye?
I gotta believe it's blind eye.
Yeah.
I'm often confused about how people communicated pre-cell phone era.
Right.
So the fact that they had no easy way to communicate, I'll give them a little leeway. I don't know how fast these horses are back in those days. That train looked like it wasn't moving very fast either. So I'll give him. Perhaps he's not up to the moment. Informed, but I don't know. You've given me very little to rest my hat on in terms of trusting Warren G. Harding.
Well, it turns out there's actually good reason to believe that Harding was relatively unaware at this time. President Harding was quite busy dealing with the extensive aftermath of World War I, jostling through labor disputes and flirting with women not named Florence. Still, you'd think he might have noticed when Fall started receiving gifts and loans totaling over $400,000, which in today's dollars would be a little over $7 million. He literally got an entire herd of cattle at one point from one of these tycoons.
You got to start asking questions.
It's going to raise a couple of questions.
You show up at the cabinet meeting and there's 400 cattle there. Where'd you get these? Don't worry about it.
Why do you stink? Why do you smell like cow shit? Just be honest, Paul. Like, what's going on?
These layers. I have to wear all these layers. Yeah. What am I going to do? I'm wearing these layers.
Yeah, I guess we all stink a little bit, right? It's wool. We're wearing wool. Okay, but it's not just how much money he was receiving. It was how obvious he was about it. I mean, the guy was living large in D.C., buying up ranches, handing out cash, strutting around like a Gilded Age Gordon Gekko with a bolo tie. Now, are you a frugal guy? Like, if you fell into this kind of money, would you be chill about it, or would you be like putting on like a zoot suit and hitting the nightclubs?
Oh yeah. See, I don't think I'm creative enough to spend money like that. My mom told me when I got a show after The Daily Show, and I was like, oh my God, I got a TV show. What do I do with this? My mom was like, you need a good chair. She goes, what I would buy would be an Eames chair. And I was like, I don't even know what an Eames chair is. And then I Googled it. And for the next 2 weeks, all I thought about was Eames chairs. And that was the thing I bought. I was like, you know what I will buy? I'll buy a chair that I'll have for the rest of my life. So that's the one fancy thing.
That advice I love, because it's just sort of like, yes, like little creature comforts. They're important. Yep. And they kind of there's these little things that just make your life experience nice. All right. So now, speaking of making instant millions, according to a Senate survey, the three reserves, these big oil reserves, held an estimated 435 million barrels of oil, which at the time would have been equivalent to the amount of oil produced by the country as a whole up to that point in time. Wow. Now, crazy fact, that number was well under the actual amount of oil that was dredged up eventually from those sites. Elk Hills alone has produced more than 1 billion barrels in its 100 years of existence. Meanwhile, whispers began reaching Congress of some shady stuff going on. On April 14th, 1922, the Wall Street Journal broke the news of the Teapot Dome as a few local Wyoming boys noticed trucks with the Sinclair logo roaming about. So I don't know. I mean, I understand the power of branding, but maybe you don't put your logos on your shady truck deliveries or
when you get
your
that
shady
deal,
oil pickups.
That's what gets it. 9 times out of 10, it's that person who wants to strut. You strut. You know, don't do it. Don't wear that fancy suit.
I think
I'm sure that's like a plot in The Godfather, one of the Godfathers, right?
Weirdly, I think that the flagrancy of like using your Sinclair trucks to transport sort of ill-begotten oil speaks to the fact that they didn't think there was any risk here. Like it was like almost like a cultural thing. It's like, yeah, we're just doing shady business and everybody knows it. Who cares?
I mean, it speaks to one of the truest thing, not to bring up Mr. Donald J. Trump, but if we're to connect it to comments, like when Trump got called out for not paying taxes, you know, he holds that up to like, because I'm smart.
Right.
I think there's always been an idea with the billionaire class that like proof of my expertise and acumen come in the fact that I get away with shit.
Yeah.
And so like you see that there, it's like, oh my God, how'd you get away with that? It's like, I'm smart. So this is what I get for being so smart.
Yeah. Just let's not even bother asking questions of character about any of that stuff. Oh, boy. That's a black hole that we could go down. But I'm going to keep going. One Wyoming senator, John B. Kendrick, was pestered with questions from other local oilmen, mostly as to why they never had a shot at leasing the land at Teapot Dome. Suspicions kept growing. They grew and grew. The Denver Post followed soon after with a front page expose calling the events, quote, one of the baldest public land grabs in history. Finally, the floodgates were opening, which led to a congressional investigation that took over 2 years. Now, I find congressional investigations like this seriously badass, at least when they're like well-intentioned and well-executed. Do you have a favorite congressional investigation?
Oh my God! This is a nerd. How much time do we have?
Come on, this is a very nerdy question, but
the way they're framed. I mean, you think about Watergate. You think about the what was it? The Oppenheimer when he was investigated, and I think all of that Red Scare stuff. They're not always used in the best of ways, and I think like the Mueller investigation was such a I think that's the January 6th investigation / presentation congressional hearings felt like I think they were framed as such a partisan affair and such theater that you almost forget the functionality of them all.
Yeah, that's pretty heartbreaking when that happens. I agree. There was one of my favorites is definitely we covered it in SNAFU Season 2. Frank Church, a senator from Idaho, led the investigation into COINTELPRO and all of the malfeasance of J. Edgar Hoover and how sort of corrupt the FBI had become at that time. And he just had so much sort of integrity and character and was so respected in the Senate, and he had an incredible staff and the people that were working for him on that investigation. And it really accomplished a lot. And it was perceived as nonpartisan at the time, and it became the only reason that we have any congressional oversight over the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, all of these intelligence institutions that up to that point had been operating in total secrecy, which also basically total impunity for whatever corrupt practices were going on. And it's really cool. Like people like Frank Church, they seem hard to come by these days.
To go full circle on this, I told you how I got into the world of improv and comedy, and it was doing improv. And my roommate, fellow improviser in college, was Frank Church, the grandson of Senator Frank Church.
No way!
100%.
Oh, that's so cool. Are you still in touch?
I am still in touch.
Is he from Idaho? Did he grow up in Idaho?
He grew up in New York because if I don't want to bastardize Frank's life, but I feel like Frank Church was such a hero in Idaho and ran for president as well, or attempted to, and then his son, my Frank's father, became a large a priest, kind of to the stars in New York, and so
wow, fascinating.
Yeah, and so my Frank grew up in New York and then came to Kalamazoo. That's so wild.
That is wild.
I'm realizing now I have I have newfound guilt for the lack of respect I gave my friend Frank Church back in college.
Did you bully a young Frank Church? Were you just like,
your family was important. Yeah, why haven't I ever heard of him?
Sorry for all the wedgies, Frankie. Why are we now just like denigrating this poor guy?
I think we're celebrating. We're celebrating Frank Church. The history of my Frank Church, your Frank Church,
all Frank churches.
Frank Church.
All the Frank churches. Diving back in, Albert Fall had actually already stepped down as Secretary of the Interior in January of 1923. So, he could enjoy his new ranch as well as help Sinclair and Doheny with other oil deals abroad. Clearly, Fall had pulled some corrupt shit. Might be worth mentioning here that President Harding was really feeling the heat by this point in his presidency, particularly relating to a few crooked folks he had appointed in his administration. Now, have you ever heard of Harding's Ohio gang?
No.
All right.
Should I have?
No.
As a Michigan boy, we don't give much respect to anybody from Ohio. So perhaps it's not my own ignorance, it's just my own prejudice.
There you go. Yeah. So this was the nickname for some of Harding's appointees, basically because he'd hired or appointed so many of his buddies from his days in Ohio. And a lot of them were ruffling feathers and drumming up scandals from all angles, from influence peddling to selling illegal permits for confiscated government alcohol. These dudes were just awful, basically. So it kind of makes sense that Albert Fall and his oily mustache twirling fit right in. And yes, if you recall the photo earlier, Fall had a big old snot mop.
Oh, God. Handlebar.
Yeah.
I mean, even if we're besmirching the guy, I don't think we want that image in our head.
I mean, it's funny, but it's gross.
It's funny, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's like moist. You're like, okay, that might be the right word, but I don't want to hear it.
So President Harding said at the time, I have no trouble with my enemies. I can take care of my enemies all right. But my damn friends, my goddamned friends, they're the ones who keep me walking the floor nights. Now that's very Godfathery.
That is. You really leaned into it too. Yeah. The performance there was nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, my friends. Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Who? The Ohio gang. I thought I made that clear.
I do wonder though, like someone, you look at these presidents, whether it's a Trump or a Barack Obama or somebody, you're like, how many good, like close friends are they able to maintain at that point? I would think someone like Trump is like so hard to get close to and so hard to sort of like feel a sense of trust with, even if you match his core values, whatever they are. Like it just seems, I don't know. They're so their life is so public and it's so committed to the public eye.
Yeah, I mean, I think the usage of a friend as somebody who you could truly be honest with and empathize with and you could be vulnerable with. I see people like Trump who sees almost everybody as like a means to an end.
Yeah,
everything has a loyalty test.
Right.
And even things, not to besmirch any of his relationships, but those don't seem to be the most friendly and open. Those seem transactional as well. And you're like, oh, what happens to a human who doesn't have an emotional sounding board or compatriot that isn't tied up into your own personal success?
Are you expressing? Are you starting to express some deep compassion for Donald Trump?
And oh my God, I stumbled on it. We've created a monster, and I just want to give him a hug.
That's probably all he needs. Jordan,
just give him a hug.
Yeah, group hug. I want in on that. Come on, man. Let's do it.
Let's break through this. Come on, you can be a better person.
At this point in our tale, we are sort of we're coming full circle. So as you recall, we sort of started with this voyage of understanding, and then we jumped in 1923. Then we jumped back to 1921 and sort of told the unfolding of the Teapot Dome scandal under Harding's administration. Now we're back. We're back on the trip with President Harding, and suddenly he began complaining of shortness of breath, and then suddenly he was just gone. A surprise heart attack took him very swiftly in August of 1923 at the ripe young age of 57. So there would be no re-election for Mr. Harding after all. Now, what do you think happened to the Teapot Dome scandal in light of Harding's passing?
Boy, that is a great question. My guess is the Fall guy rides away to a very successful life, and the story moves on to other more pressing things.
Yeah.
As in, there's never accountability. I guess that's what I've learned to believe in American politics, is that accountability is a rare mineral.
It's very elusive. You're largely correct here. There was a whole lot of legal wrangling over the course of several years. And at long last, the Supreme Court ruled in 1927 that the leases had been illegal and all of the oil reserves were returned to government control. In 1929, Albert Fall was convicted of accepting bribes from Sinclair and served 1 year in prison, which sounds light until you consider this was completely unprecedented at the time. Fall was the first cabinet member in U.S. history to go to prison for crimes committed in office. Also, I can only imagine a year in prison in 1923 is pretty bleak. I mean,
I can't imagine there's making a lot of space for rec time or rehabilitation.
Yeah. Now, the one nice thing about this was that it sort of set the standard that even cabinet members aren't above the law. And I truly hope that ethos carries through. I think it's a little wishy-washy at times, but it's nice to see some little measure of accountability, even if it feels small. Now, Sinclair and Doheny were totally acquitted of their charges of conspiracy to defraud the government, although Sinclair did end up serving 6 months in prison for contempt of court and contempt of Congress. Why? Because he hired private investigators to follow and intimidate the jury during his trial. These guys they feel like they're just like they can do anything.
Like come on, oil man. Yeah. Come on, relax. You got the win.
Yeah, this is the golden age of oil barons where they can just do whatever the fuck they want. I mean, they're all the Elon Musks of their day, I guess.
Yeah, 100%.
So needless to say, damage was irrevocably done. Public trust in the government tanked. Harding's legacy, despite dying a quite popular president, his legacy was permanently stained. In 1948, Arthur M. Schlesinger, a Harvard historian, put out a poll amongst fellow historians and government officials to assess the greatest and worst presidents up to that point. Harding landed dead last and continues to place near the bottom of the barrel in annual polls to this day. And Teapot Dome became shorthand for political corruption evermore, which is kind of funny. It's like, I like how scandals, ever since Watergate, every scandal, you just add the word gate at the end of it, and it becomes like, that's the scandal. But I wonder if before Watergate, it was like, it was like the Firehouse Dome scandal. Like everyone just added the word dome to stuff.
Now I feel like Qatari Jet is just so much cleaner.
Ooh, good. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Although that's not a scandal. That's not a scandal. It's literally not a scandal.
Honestly, you are right. Yeah. Yes, there has been no kerfuffle on the other side of it. We're just moving on.
Yeah, we're just moving on. It's kind of refreshing. There's no such thing as a scandal anymore.
It's just like, why are we going to waste time, bother everybody, spend years looking into this? Just keep moving on.
Well, this does lead me to my favorite portion of this podcast, which is the sort of reflection here, Jordan. And I'm curious, what are your takeaways? Have we learned any lessons, or are there lessons we still need to learn from a Teapot Dome type scandal? Are there any parallels to the modern moment? We've touched on a few throughout the episode. What jumps to mind?
Well, I mean, frankly, I was shocked that there was some amount of accountability. It's humorous that the oil barons get off scot-free except for trying to intimidate witnesses, which is hilarious. But the fact that there was sustained pressure and a governmental organization that continued to stay on it to punish somebody for abusing the public trust is refreshing to hear, but I think so sad in the light of what we are seeing right now. Yeah. It seems as if there's no appetite for that. There's no bipartisan appetite for comeuppance for somebody abusing this. And like you said, I think you stumbled on it with the Qatari Jet. It's like we have such obvious examples of corruption, and there's also Donald Trump's personal cryptocurrency as a form in which people are paying our government. These are scandalous things. I think back in that time period, it's a barrage of information that things are getting washed out with new information, and just a wash of devices that are in our pockets that make us forget the things that we perhaps could be or should be outraged by. I look back at that time and I'm like, oh, I feel like they were able to stick
process
with a story.
These things, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great question. I think you're raising a really meaningful question about contemporary mores, which is has our sort of ethical or moral compass degraded in recent time, or are we just too overwhelmed to actually compute these things as they happen? And I can say honestly, I think exasperation is working in corruption's favor. There are a few points that I think Teapot Dome raises. For example, federal resources quietly getting funneled to private interests. What's happening now in this big, beautiful bill is this idea to literally just sell publicly owned land to private interests. And of course, those private interests won't be local ranchers or farmers or people who want to build their homes and live there. They will be these massive real estate conglomerates and or mining interests or the people that can afford to buy huge swaths of land. And it's so it's far more permanent than a sort of lease arrangement. And it's really interesting. That one's an interesting one because it really is fracturing a lot of Trump supporters. I think a lot of conservative folks are like, oh, hold on. This publicly owned land, this is land that we all own and that we all benefit from. There's an impulse, I think, on the right to vilify government and vilify the sort of scale of government. And there's some good reasons for that, of course. But we forget, or I think a lot of times someone with a right-leaning mindset might forget that government and the government ownership of things is actually public. It means that it's all of us. It means that we all are owners are sharing this thing. And when it comes to huge amounts of natural resources and or just beautiful public land like Yellowstone or all of our national parks, our state parks, that's publicly owned and it's amazing. These are incredible resources for all of us.
There's conversations about where those lines are being drawn, and be curious where the ramifications of something like the Big Beautiful Bill and how that affects people like that who are using this public land in those ways aren't going to see the kickbacks. I worry that what we talked about is it's so hard for us to have sustained attention on anything that isn't completely outrageous.
Yeah. Jordan Klepper, what are you up to? What can you tell us about us? Obviously, you're still crushing it on The Daily Show. What else do you have going on?
That takes up a lovely part of my time. And then when I have free weekends, I hit the road and I do a show called Suffering Fools, which is part stand-up, part TED Talk. I got a bunch of slides and try to make sense from some of these stories I've got from being out on the road. So that's a fun time to get out into all over America and tell some war stories.
I love it. I really want to see that show. And if you're out there anywhere in America, go see Jordan Klepper. The guy, he's funny. He's smart. And I will say, you delivered on delightful.
Pretty delightful. Thank you.
You were kind of delightful. I feel like I carried a lot of the delightfulness.
You were very delightful, yes.
But you met it. You met the standard, and I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. And you know what? I learned something. I don't know if I like Harding any more than I did coming in and out, but I understand the man more.
Yeah.
I'm more confused about Fall Guy, but I'm glad to see a little bit of a moment of accountability. So thank you for that.
So glad to have you on the pod. Jordan Klepper, all my best, buddy.
Thanks, Ed.
SNAFU is a production of iHeart Podcasts and SNAFU Media, a partnership between Film Nation Entertainment and Pacific Electric Picture Company. Our post-production studio is Gilded Audio. Our executive producers are me, Ed Helms, Mike Falbo, Glenn Basner, Andy Kim, Whitney Donaldson, and Dylan Fagan. This episode was produced by Alyssa Martino and Tori Smith. Our video editor is Jared Smith. Technical direction and engineering from Nick Dooley. Our creative executive is Brett Harris. Logo and branding by The Collected Works. Legal review from Dan Welsh, Megan Halson, and Caroline Johnson. Special thanks to Isaac Dunham, Adam Horn, Lane Klein, and everyone at iHeart Podcasts, but especially Will Pearson, Carrie Lieberman, Nikki Etor, Nathan Otoski, and Alex Corral. While I have you, don't forget to pick up a copy of my book, SNAFU, the definitive guide to history's greatest screw-ups. It's available now from any book retailer. Just go to snafu-book.com. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.